Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Lost with Friends. I'm your host, Paul, and we will be rewatching the entire series of Lost leading up to the fan reunion Lost 2017 in Hawaii again. And we're going to start, of course, with the pilot. Uh, I have a very special guest with me today to discuss pilot parts 1 and 2. Why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hello, my name is Michael Gillman, and I'm a photographer. Um, and I love Lost. Yeah, so glad to be here, discussing it with Paul.
What was I calling you the other day? Internationally renowned photographer,
Oh, you
Michael
gave me
Gillman.
a lot of credits. The credit I'll take. Sure.
Credit well deserved.
Well, thank you.
So now you and I met in Hawaii during Lost 2014, right?
Yes.
And if you could tell us a little bit about that experience very briefly.
Well, it was a great experience for me personally. Loving the show and loving photography, both, and kind of combining the two aspects, right? So, you're in Hawaii, which is a beautiful place. So it's a bit of a photographer's dream. So being there for Lost was just fantastic. And getting to meet you and everyone else that's so interested in the show that, got me there in the first place, was great. So overall, it was a very, very good experience.
Now, what got you into, how did you get into Lost? When did you get into Lost? And why did you get into Lost?
Good questions. Unfortunately, I did not get into Lost during the first season. I had a friend who, I think it was in the fifth season, when this friend mentioned Lost to me and said I should watch it. And I've always heard of the show, but I never watched a lot of television. So they talked me into it. So I started watching in the fifth season and just binge watched the first four seasons.
Well, no, wait.
Stop.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. Did you started with the fifth season, or you caught up before the fifth season?
Oh, I caught up before the fifth season.
Oh, okay.
I started with season one and binge watched, and caught up around the fifth season.
Okay. I actually very very similar. I had always heard about it, but I had always heard there was, because I heard, oh, they don't answer, they ask so many questions but they never answer any of the
Right.
questions. So I was very hesitant, but I kept seeing, like, every year it was always on a lot, because I read a lot of entertainment news websites,
Sure.
and it was always on, top show of this year, top show of that year. So I decided, you know what, I'll finally give it a shot. Right before season 5, I believe it was the summer before, because I think season 5 premiered mid-season, I want to say, so it was like that summer
Right.
before. I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot, and if I don't like it, that's that. And I watched all the first 4 seasons on ABC's website, and I actually ended up watching it, I think, 3 times before season 5 premiered. Like, that's how much I was like, wow, I really love this show.
Oh yeah, that's dedication. And with each rewatch, you always find something new or some aspect that you missed before, and it's great in that way. And I still find that to be true. There's still tidbits. No matter how many times I rewatch it, there's always something new to pick up on. No matter how small, that's really cool.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Like, of course, it doesn't happen in the episode we're going to be discussing. And I think that because the show's been off the air so long, and because it premiered more than 10 years ago, I think spoilers are okay for this series, right? What do
I
you
would
think?
say. I would say,
I
yes,
mean, because
absolutely.
mostly, I would think mostly this show is going to be for our friends, the fellow Losties who are going back. I would hope that it would have
Sure.
some crossover into, people could say, hey, well, these guys are talking about the show, so you can listen to this show. But I mean, I think spoilers aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's not like I'm going to say, blurt out in the first episode, well, here's what the smoke monster is, because I don't
Sure.
think that's necessarily right. But
Of
um,
course.
I don't remember what episode it is in particular, but the episode where Jack is looking for Charlie and they find the little bandages that he had around his fingers. Do you know the one I'm talking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
And it took me probably until my fourth or fifth time to realize, because he had written fate and then he wrote late because the plane was late or whatever, but he was
Yes.
leaving, or the rescue was late, I'm sorry, but he was leaving these little things, and it was LATE, and of course by the time he got to Charlie he was too late, or at least it seemed that way.
Right.
And it took me until about my fourth or fifth time watching it to go, oh, late because he is late. You know what I mean? Like, that was something.
Exactly.
That may seem very, like, probably everybody listening to this is going to be like, Paul, you idiot, we got that right away. But that's just one of those ones where it took me a few times to actually get that little nuance, or whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the show is full of things like that. And that's one of the things I love about it.
Now, were you hooked right from the very first episode, from the pilot?
I was. I think because early on, and one of the things they've done so well, and from a photographer's standpoint, and doing a little bit of film, it was filmed beautifully. So aesthetically, to me, it was a very pleasing show to watch. That aside, I mean, from the very first episode, it built a great foundation of characters, and not just one type of characters, but varied. There was a great diversity. You had your overachievers, you had your underachievers, uh, people with all these problems, and there was such a diversity that there's always somebody that, no matter who is watching it, you can relate, at least, quasi relate to at least one of the characters. And I think they did a great job of making very relatable characters.
I definitely noticed that, and that's one of the things that I actually noticed almost every time that I rewatch it, is the fact that there are so many different characters, and they are very different from each other. There's not anybody who's like, you could sit there, even in that first episode, knowing what we know, you can't necessarily sit there and say, oh, well, that person's just like that person.
Right,
That person's
exactly.
funny and that person's funny. Yes, but they're funny in different ways.
Right,
Like
exactly.
Hurley kind of is like awkward funny, whereas Sawyer says, he calls him Lardo, and that's the
Yes.
first use of a Sawyer nickname, and that's funny. And of course, there is a little part of you that's like, oh, I shouldn't be laughing at that. That's mean.
Right. Right.
but
Exactly.
but I always notice that in that first episode, we don't really find out a lot about the people. It's just like these little glimpses into who they might be at that point,
Right. Right.
because
Exactly.
they weren't fully fleshed out characters, but it was just like a little glimpse here, like the moment when Hurley hands Claire the second food thing. It's like, oh, okay, he's a very he might be a very compassionate guy.
Right.
you know
Exactly.
and it's just like those little moments where it gives you just a glimpse of like who he might be.
Absolutely. And but they gave you enough to keep you motivated to keep watching, and that's probably the reason why, I mean, so many people were hooked. I mean, that's probably, in my opinion, one of the best pilot episodes of any show that I've personally ever seen. Ever, honestly.
Oh yeah, I agree. And like you said, it was partly because it was just beautifully shot. And I mean, I would assume, and I've seen a few things filmed in Hawaii, not many, but I would assume that it's very difficult to make it look bad, even the Hawaii Five-0 where they have, there's the very gritty and whatever, you still look at it and go, that looks so beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree.
Okay, so from the visual point, which kind of going right into talking about the episode, what do you think? Because I read a thing where J.J. Abrams, I believe, had talked about it, where they didn't want to show a lot of red. That's why, like, the Oceanic logo is very blue,
Hmm.
and nobody's really wearing red clothing. So that the moment when they pull the guy out from under, when Locke and Jack pull the guy out and his leg is damaged, and there's like that red. You know what I mean? Because they wanted that to
Yeah.
be very like drive home the point of like we haven't seen red, so when you do see it, it's like whoa, blood. What from a visual standpoint, what do you think of that? Did that
I
stick
think that's
out to
very
you?
interesting. That's something that's something that I haven't thought of before, and that's a very interesting take on that. That's genius, actually. Um, yeah, no, that's the first time I've heard of that, but that I can see that as a very good tool to use in the way that they used it for dramatic effect.
Yeah, because that was always because I mean, if I'm not mistaken, really some of the only, like I said, to really drive home the point would be when that happens. I mean, yeah, you see like a few scratches here and there on people, but it's that moment where they pull the guy out, and then the moment where the pilot gets eaten by the monster or destroyed
Yes,
by the monster or whatever, however you want to
right,
say it, and the
right.
the, the blood just splashes on the front of the plane. I'm trying to think because I just watched it again the other day, and I'm trying to think. There's not many major things of red, so I think it does very much stand out for that reason.
No, I completely agree. Absolutely.
Um, so I wrote down some notes while I was watching it, if you don't mind, and things
Sure.
that I found interesting, especially having known the series and things like that. I noticed that Kate actually chose to tell Jack her real name, which almost any when we despite what the fandom seems to think about Kate, which I didn't realize until I actually started talking with a lot of people, there is a lot of Kate hate out there.
There is.
I don't
Absolutely
I don't
is.
quite understand it. But I mean, do you have the Kate hate? Can you explain the Kate hate? I don't.
I don't. Um, I can see where it comes from, maybe, in that she's very stubborn. Uh, she's very independent. Um, I think, you know, she's a character that her heart is in the right place, but she just doesn't always make the best decisions. But then again, given their circumstances, uh, I mean, who's going to make the best decisions? You know what I mean? I mean, this is the most extreme of circumstances, so it's hard for me personally to just buy into that Kate hate, honestly. I mean, it's one thing to watch the show and think, oh, well, that was a stupid move. She never should have done that. But it's actually put yourself in those positions and be a part of those extreme circumstances. Anything can happen. You know, so that's really how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it wasn't until I really started talking with people and seeing people's opinions on the show and things like that. Because I was never, because I got into it late, I didn't really get into like I was never on like the message boards and things
Sure.
like that. I pretty much I would tweet things during seasons 5 and 6 when I would watch it because I have this ongoing joke where whenever I watch Lost or almost every time I watch Lost, I have to be eating chicken because like that's what I would when I was binge watching the first 4 seasons. I was just eating chicken constantly. So now it's become a running joke where if I'm watching Lost, I have to eat chicken. So I would sit there when seasons 5 and 6 were on, and I would have my fried chicken. I would pretty much turn off everything but Twitter. I would get off Facebook and things like that and I wouldn't even really read any tweets from the fandom. It would just be me tweeting, like kind of live tweeting it or whatever. And even then I wasn't really live tweeting because I was trying to pay attention to what was going on in the show. So once I really started getting in touch with other fans, which was, I think, after the show ended, it was very weird to see that there was such a polarizing thing. But to be fair, my next note after the fact that she chose to tell Jack her real name, which I thought was interesting, because knowing what we know about that character, she tends to lie about things like that at any turn.
Sure.
My next thing, as you pointed out, she's stubborn. She does the "I'm coming with you" right out of the gate.
Right.
And
right.
I guess, like you said, maybe that's part of it, is she always thinks she knows what's best. But to be fair, all of them do.
It's true. I mean, I completely agree.
I put, and this is something that I would assume every fan, knowing what they know about the show, would ask. Was the smoke that she saw plain smoke or the smoke monster? Which I don't know if that was ever really answered. You know the part that I'm talking about when she says, "Oh, I saw some smoke in the valley."
Yes.
What do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't answer that. I can't answer that for certain. I think there's a good possibility that it was. It tends to lead people into situations. So yeah, I mean, it's very possible that that it was the smoke monster. I can't think of anything else it may be. So I'm gonna have to say yes.
You think it was the smoke monster?
I think it was.
Yeah, because I've never really. I mean, I've thought about it. To me, there doesn't really seem to be a reason, unless it was just knowing what we know, which would be to kind of get rid of people.
Sure.
Without giving too much in terms of spoilers. I think you and any other fan would, longtime fan would understand what I mean by that. But right. I think that's the only thing I could think of. So I'm not. I don't want to. Like you said, you can't answer it. But I always just thought that was interesting. Let's see. I'm sorry. Did you have something?
Oh no, please.
Okay. Let's see. For someone who never wanted to be in charge, not only did Jack take charge immediately, telling people what to do. Hey, help me rescue this guy. Oh, you're doing that CPR wrong. Hey, Hurley, come over here and help Claire. But he also said immediately, no, you're not coming with us to Charlie. When Jack and Kate were going on their hike to go find the front of the plane, he's like, no, you're not coming with us. And then when they were actually on the hike, he was like, come on, guys, we got to keep moving.
Right. And
see, that would lead me to be more of a Jack hater than a Kate hater,
Yeah, I think he's always this constant struggle of which obviously it stems from his father of just trying to be a leader, whether he wants to be or not. I think inherently he is, whether he likes it or not. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly see your point there. I know there's a lot of Jack hate as well.
And I don't mean that I didn't mean to say like, oh, I hate Jack, because I mean,
sure,
there's not any one character that I dislike over another. There are characters that I like over other characters.
Sure.
But there's not really any characters that I dislike over others.
Yes, he's a very emotionally driven character. I mean, so.
But I mean, people are in general, so
true.
It makes sense. It humanizes him, in my opinion.
Exactly, and especially it goes back to these extreme circumstances. So it just magnifies that, you know. So yeah, I agree.
Okay, further notes I have. This was something because, of course, any fan knows that the music plays an incredibly important part
Yes,
in the show. Now,
absolutely.
did you go to the concert just a few months ago in Los Angeles?
I did not get to go. I was actually on a shoot, so I did not get to make it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wasn't able to go either. I saw pictures, I heard it was great. That's one of those things where I wish I could have gone. You
Same
know?
here. Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, you're on a shoot, you're like, oh, you know, I wish I could go. And, you know, you're just doing your thing and you're trying to put it in the back of your mind, but then you start to see the photos and the people playing videos, and it's like, oh, you know, you realize you missed something really special, you know. So I agree. I wish I could have went as well.
But I think that definitely goes along with the one of the reasons is not just because, yeah, it would have been nice to see, everybody that we, all of our Lostie friends again.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I definitely think that, overall that is because the music plays such an important part. But one of the things that I noticed was how in the first episode, and I would assume it was because they were trying to just establish what's going on and who everybody is, and there wasn't really a clear cut thing. But I noticed that the music in the first episode seems to make everything more mysterious and more important and more weird than it probably should have. Like there's that music cue where Locke has the orange, and there's
Right.
just like this very like creepy violin happening, and I to this day I still don't understand that scene. Maybe I'm just missing the point, but I don't quite get it. Where him and Kate have like that exchange.
Right. Right. No, I completely agree, and I wondered that myself. Uh, they seemed to want that scene to be a lot more sinister than what it should have been. I think. Um, that they were setting Locke up to be a really bad guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, that's just that wasn't the case. I think it was a very misleading cue there, honestly.
And like even when they're going on the hike, I noticed when Vincent the dog is watching them. There's just like there's this. It's just the same where there's this very mysterious, weird music, and I'm wondering if maybe
I
that, like you
completely
said, they were
agree.
they were trying
Yeah.
to maybe trying to set something up where like, oh, the dog is in charge, or the dog is the
Yeah,
is the killer or whatever.
exactly. That's
Which
like
I
the
mean,
most
they're
dramatic shot, other than later in the series, of course, that Vincent had ever got.
yeah.
So yeah, it seemed to place a lot of emphasis on him, just peering at them through the bushes. You know, like at any moment he can run out and get them. You know.
Which I mean, if they wanted to set that up, then they should not have included the line later with Michael where Walt, the trees are rustling and Walt says, "Was that Vincent?" And Michael's like, "That wasn't Vincent." If they want, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like they should have played that up of like maybe it could have been Vincent
Yeah,
knocking
right.
over
No,
trees.
that's true. That's true. Which I always thought that was such a silly question. That was such a silly
Yeah.
question. You know, you've got this thing making these like ridiculously loud noises, and it's pushing over trees, and it's moving quickly, and he wonders if that's his dog. To me, obviously, no, that's not your dog.
Well, to be fair though, a few episodes from then, and I mean, knowing how weird the series, I don't want to say weird, that sounds bad, but knowing how no, you know what? I will go with weird. How weird the series got later on. I guess it's not so far fetched, but Hurley thinks it's a dinosaur in a few episodes.
I think a lot
So,
of people thought it was a dinosaur. Yeah.
but I
Um,
mean, that's to me, that's just as strange as the fact that it could have been the dog.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Okay, what else do I have in my notes here? Very strange, and I guess this was just probably on the part of the network, but I put very strange that they split the pilot episode into two episodes. They should have played it all as one, kind of like they did with some of the finales, and a lot of times maybe it's more on cable networks, but they tend to do that where they'll do it as like a mini movie type thing.
Sure, yeah, that's I've seen it done that way plenty of times. Absolutely.
But I definitely think, especially watching it back now, I think it plays as one episode. That's kind of why I wanted to discuss parts 1 and 2 as just one episode, because to me that just feels right.
Absolutely, yeah. That definitely makes sense. I'm not quite sure why they split that up, but yeah, it very much feels like a 2 episode.
Okay, next note. Charlie's so selfish. I mean, that could cover just a wide range of topics, but
True, true.
but I think that was mostly at the moment when I wrote that was because they were running from the monster,
Right.
and Kate was yelling for Jack, and when it's all said and done, and Charlie's like, I'm okay. My name's Charlie, by the way.
Right.
Not at all asking like, okay, is Jack okay? But he's just like, hey, pretty girl, pay attention to me.
This is true. He is a very self-centered fellow. That's for certain.
Okay. I love the line, how does something like that happen? I don't know why I just wrote that. I wrote, I love this line. Okay, this is something. 2004, of course, post 9/11, and the world, as I made sure to ask some of the now international friends that I have, I made sure to ask, because I was relatively young. And I'm going to make some people feel very old by saying this. I was in 5th grade when 9/11 happened.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry. So I did make sure to ask some of the people that I met if the world really felt that as much as American media tries to portray that the world felt it, and they said that it was a very poignant moment, the world over. But so
Right.
2004, post 9/11, and I have here cigarettes, a lighter, drugs, and we'll find out in a few episodes, fireworks. And Cindy gave Jack more alcohol than she was supposed to, but yet I can't bring a full bottle of water onto a plane.
That is pretty ridiculous.
I don't I don't quite understand. I mean, yes, I understand it was for dramatic effect and everything like that, and people do smuggle things onto planes, but
Sure.
Sawyer had his cigarettes and a lighter. And like I said, there were fireworks, and Cindy broke what was it? What did he say? FAA regulations by
Regulations, yes.
And
She didn't seem to mind, right?
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's probably because he was a good-looking guy. That sounds incredibly selfish, but if Charlie can be selfish by saying, hey, pretty girl, I'm a rock star, pay attention to me. Perhaps she knew that he was, that Jack was a good-looking doctor,
Right, exactly.
Okay. As I mentioned before, Lardo, Sawyer's first nickname given. Okay, this is one that I always notice, and I believe I heard this on the commentary, because I'm a loser who watches people talk over episodes of shows by watching commentary. In that scene when they're going out to test the battery to try to find the bars, and Sawyer decides at the last minute, like, oh, I'm gonna join yous, and he says, I'm a complex guy, sweetheart. He's not using his southern accent in that scene. I don't know if you've ever noticed it or not.
It's I don't think so. I don't think I've noticed that. Then again, obviously I have a bit of a southern drawl, so
I know you're gonna make the ladies swoon on this thing with your accent.
Seriously doubt that, but
maybe some guys too. I don't know.
So I think for me personally, because I talk that way generally, when I hear him, it doesn't seem as out of place to me than it may somebody else who doesn't have that accent. So to be honest, no, I don't think I noticed that.
Because I know, I'm pretty sure it was on the commentary they talked about how Josh Holloway got that role, which was he went in like I'm gonna go off on a story here. He went in as a like a slick businessman because they had said that he was a con man or something like that. I don't know if they mentioned that he was a con man in the description of the character, but he went in, as like a slick businessman. He was in a suit and everything, and he forgot one of his lines at the one point, and he wasn't using his accent, his southern accent, and he kicked over a chair. And he might have even yelled, "Son of a bitch." I don't know.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that's the way the story went.
But we'll just say yeah. And somebody can correct me later. But he kicked over the chair, and he got very upset, and his natural accent came out. And that's what made the producers like him. So when they were, from what I understand, when they were filming that scene, he wasn't, or he started out not using his accent. And I believe it was J.J. Abrams kind of pulled him to the side, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "We hired you because of your angry Southern accent. Like, don't hide it in this scene." So that's something that I notice every time. Like, you can pick out. I think there's two specific lines where I know it's "I'm a complex guy, sweetheart." I can't remember what the other line is. Which, by the way, his second nickname, Sweetheart, technically.
Yep. Yes.
But he doesn't use the accent in that exchange.
Right. Now, he was born in Georgia, was he not? I think he was.
The actor?
In Georgia? Yes.
I'm not sure.
I think he was. So, I think that accent was a pretty natural thing for him. If I remember correctly, he moved to California for a time, lost the accent, but when they hired him for Lost, I think he said, he pretty much had to relearn, using that accent again.
Right.
After he lost it. So, yeah.
Well, I know that's a thing with actors where they try to do that, and it's not just actors; it's actually like newscasters and things like that, where they try to do a regional free. You know what I mean? Because you couldn't necessarily have someone like from the South, and this isn't anything against anyone with any particular accent, but a lot of America, very, very backwards in that way, where you hear somebody talk, where they talk funny, and you're not gonna take them as seriously. But I think for this show, it worked, and it needed it just as much as it needed Sun and Jin speaking not only later on in their in the accent, but just in the dialogue itself, and have subtitles. I think it worked, and even Saeed with his accent, which if I'm not mistaken, he's British actually.
Yes, he is. He sounds nothing like Saeed in interviews and the like. Absolutely.
Right. So, but I definitely, because as you said before, it was such a diverse cast. I think they needed a little bit of everything with that, and I mean even intentional or which I don't think it was intentional, because she's supposed to be from the Midwest, but the character of Kate every so often, and it's just something that I notice because. I guess I have to admit that I am a little backwards in the talk funny thing. I tend to notice when there's Canadian actors, because they'll say "oat" instead of "out."
Sure.
And Kate sometimes, because she Evangeline Lilly is Canadian, she does slip into that every so often. So my ear just picks out those little things. Yeah. Let's see what's my next note here. Oh, the always important backgammon scene.
I think that was one of the best foreshadowing scenes of almost any series I've seen. I
Oh,
love that scene.
absolutely. Hands down. And I remember
Yes.
even going into season 6 when we had that season 5 finale where kind of everything got flipped on its head. And I mean,
Right.
realistically, in every season finale, things like got shaken up. But I think the season 5 one, maybe second only to season 3. Uh,
Yes.
where everything got shaken up. But I remember the producers even saying, if you're gonna go back and rewatch anything, it was that scene to kind of
Right.
get you prepared for what season 6 was going to be.
Yes.
And I definitely think that it works in that. And like you said, probably one of the best foreshadowing scenes ever.
I completely agree. Love that scene.
Okay, next I have And the Polar Bear. Because that was, I know for a lot of people that I've talked to, when I say that, especially when I was going the first time, and they're like, "Why are you going to Hawaii? Like any particular reason?" And I'm like, "I'm a huge fan of Lost," and they're like, "Oh," because they immediately turned it off after there's a polar bear in like on a desert island where there's jungle and whatever. They immediately got turned off by that. And then of course when you have that negative aspect in your mind, everything else that comes after it, oh, there's a smoke monster and there's this, that, and the other, time travel, and they were just like, oh well, that whole series is stupid. So that's kind of, and to me, that the polar bear showing up is one of the first things that made people go, that that kind of split into like, I'm gonna buy this as a thing within this show, or I'm just gonna say that everything here is stupid.
Right. And I kind of, I kind of feel like that's a bit of a cop out because, I mean, you don't always watch a television show because it makes complete sense, or the whole, oh well, that could never happen, that's not real life, this show is ridiculous. I mean, that's to me, that's not why you watch a show. I mean, a show like this, it's not always about real life. you know uh, there's a lot of real life elements in it, but
Right.
so I don't know, to um,
Which
stop watching that early on, to me, is I think you need to give it a chance.
one of the funny things that people will say, oh, that the polar bears would turn me off, and I'm like, well, so then you were up to it, or you were with it up until that point, but what do you think about the thing knocking over the trees, and whatever pulled the pilot out of the plane and killed him? Like, you were on board with all of that, but a polar bear, which they gave a really good explanation for later on, if
Right.
people were willing to stick with it,
Right.
that, like, what did you think of that, of the monster thing? But the polar bear is what turned you off.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many extreme things that happened up until that point already. I mean, if you think about it, even the plane, coming completely apart in the air and crashing on an island, that there were that many survivors. I mean, that in itself, there were so many ridiculous situations already there that I just don't see how the polar bear itself was, oh, well, this can't be real. This would never happen.
Well, it's,
So,
I believe Saeed actually mentioned that at one point, where when he says, how did we all survive with just a few
exactly.
scrapes,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think you're right with, there, up until that point in the second half of the pilot, so many amazing things had happened, but that's where they're gonna turn off.
Yeah, yeah. I don't understand that at all.
Okay, I have a continuity error. Jack
Uh-oh.
said that no one survived when they got to the front of the plane.
Right.
They get back and he says no one survived. But yet when they're talking about the polar bear, Boone asks if that's what killed the pilot. And
Uh,
Charlie says, "Oh, that's a tiny version of what killed." And I'll be honest, it took me probably until my third maybe fourth time watching it through to go, hey, wait a minute, something doesn't make sense here.
Right, right.
So
I did
I was
not
willing to
catch that.
buy. What's that?
I did not catch that.
Yeah. Um. Okay, let's see what do I have. Hurley faints and cements his place as the comic relief of the show. When he's he's like,
Yes.
I'm not a fan of blood.
He did make that known. He did give Shaq the warning, at
Mm-hmm.
least. So,
And then the very next thing I have is Bear Village, and Sawyer cements his place as the sarcastic one.
honestly, I love that. I love sarcastic humor. I mean, he's got so many great one-liners. He's got to be one of my favorite characters.
Oh, absolutely. And I always say that my favorite character was Richard until we actually got the answers about him, because to me it
Ah,
didn't live up. But I'd say definitely, yeah, Sawyer's up there as one of the best. Um, Kate pretending to not know how to use a gun, knowing what we know about her later. I always find that very funny.
right. True.
Um,
True.
oh, and I've two more notes really quick.
Sure.
Um, it says I have a thing here that says I remember a few years ago there was a real life plane that went down. I don't remember if it was in England or Australia, but I'm pretty sure it was non-U.S.
Okay.
And I had seen a clip of the local news channel a local news channel that was talking about it, and they said something about they had exclusive footage, and the footage that they showed, I'm assuming someone didn't realize, but it was that shot of the back half of the plane ripping off.
Oh,
And they, yeah,
wow.
a
All right.
news organization put that out there of like, oh, this is footage of the plane that just went down. And I remember because, as far as I know, after I had seen the clip, they had come out already and been like, hey, we're sorry. Our deepest apologies to anyone affected by this plane crash or, whatever. But just how do you not
How is
know?
that overlooked? Exactly. No, I completely agree. Um, wow. That's really surprising.
And my very last thing is, again, I love that classic closing line of "Guys, where are we?"
Yes.
Probably one
That's
of the best ways, as you said before about the backgammon scene, one of the best foreshadowing.
yes.
Definitely one of the best ways I think to end a first episode is the "Guys, where are we?" Because of the so many mysterious things, and the with that of the French transmission, they're like, if they got rescued, why is it still playing?
Right.
You know.
Exactly. No, that was a great cliffhanger. Um, well, the show itself had plenty. I mean, there was one, at the end of every episode, for the most part. But yeah, that's definitely one of the classic lines, for sure.
Did you have anything in particular you wanted to discuss about this episode? You
Um,
because you were there. I'm sorry. I know I asked a question and then just started
sure.
talking anyway. But when you were there, did you get any, like, did you try to recreate any shots? Because, as you know, you are an internationally renowned photographer. So did you try to, whether it be video or still photography, did you try to recreate any shots or try to get the exact particular angle of something that you remembered?
I'd thought about that, but really my purpose, it wasn't really to recreate anything so much as my own take on the filming locations and what they look like now. Um, so yeah, I mean that was it. So I went to these locations, and there weren't any particular angles I was looking for in relation to how it was filmed or the show itself. Just the locations themselves,
Okay.
and I guess my own take on angles and composition was the main thing for me.
Was there any ones that you remember, especially from the pilot that you went to, that really stuck out to you?
Yes, when he woke up in the bamboo forest,
Mm-hmm.
um, that was very surreal, being in that spot. So I would have to think that's That's probably the one of the ones that stuck out the most for me.
That's pretty cool. I don't know if I would, because if I'm not mistaken, that bamboo that was not near the crash beach, correct? That was actually
Correct. It
near
was not.
where the church was, the finale church, but the Sun and Jin's wedding church. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it was fairly close to there. So, and the good thing about this was, when you've got a filming crew on a show like this, and this many actors, most of these locations that look, very remote, generally they're right off the side of the road.
Well, that's actually one of the things that I remember every time I rewatch the pilot. There's the scene where they're climbing up the mountain, and there's like it's kind of like that dirty, dusty part of the mountain where they're just like grabbing onto roots and things. And I remember watching a clip. I'm not sure if you know where I'm going with the story, but I remember watching a clip where they talked about the fact that that was only maybe 5 feet off the ground, off the side of the road. They just made it at that particular angle where it looked like they were so high up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you think of you look at these locations and it's like, oh, deep in the jungle and here and there, but really when it comes to the filming crew and everything they have to carry and everything that has to be transported, they find the best location that's closest to the main road as they can, which makes a lot of sense, of course.
Well, that was the thing that surprised me when we were there, when we were doing the location tours, was the fact that the crash beach, if I'm not mistaken, part of it actually was the road. They just kind of threw sand on it to make the beach look longer than it was, right? Isn't that right?
That would make sense because yes, the crash site, it wasn't there wasn't a lot of real estate there. Honestly, the beach itself wasn't that wide. So if they did do something like that, it would make perfect sense.
Because I remember I was there. I got a few shots. I know that I got a few people doing things like the part where he comes out after, he wakes up in the bamboo forest and then he comes out onto the beach.
Right.
And a few people wanted to get that moment of themselves running out there. And part of the issue at that point was there were tents in those spots.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do it without like walking over people or anything. So it was very difficult to get. And I remember one of the shots that I got was a few episodes from the first one, the shot where Jack sees someone, not going to name names to avoid some spoilers, but he sees someone where there's like a tree kind of leaning over, and he sees, you know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And right in that shot, every time that like there was just a big tent right there. So I'm just like, you know what? I just want to get the shot, even if that tent is there. That's fine. I'll have to deal with that.
Right.
That's actually that beach. Was that the only beach that I went to? Because I did not go to the beach camp.
Right.
I don't think, but I went. Maybe, yeah, I think it was just that same beach, just two different points was where I got some of the sand, because they gave us those little vials to put some sand in.
Yes.
And I got sand. I think it was from two spots. One of them was from where he exits, when he comes out of the forest. I think half of it is that, but I can't remember off the top of my head, because even though we got two vials, I only used one of them. But it was half of, I think it was just half of that and just half of regular just crash site beach.
Right.
But I knew that I wanted, even though of course it's almost impossible that it's, where Matthew Fox actually stepped, but it was just the fact that I know that it was from that spot,
Sure.
Did you have anything in particular that you wanted to talk about with this episode?
No,
I had my notes and anything that sticks out to you upon a rewatch?
No, I think we've pretty much covered the main points. Yeah, I'm good.
All right. I think that's where we're gonna end it then. Do you want to use a minute to plug your growing photography business? Tell them where you are on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff.
Well, great. Yes, thanks. I am. My website is Michael Gillman dot photography. Instagram, you can find me at Michael Gillman Photography, and on Twitter, you can find me at the EXIF Files. That's EXIFFILES.
Okay. Thank you very much. We bow to you here, internationally renowned photographer Mike Gillman. No, wait. I've been friends with you for a while now, and I just always say Mike whenever I'm talking about you. Do you like Mike or Michael?
Mike is fine.
Okay. I
Absolutely.
feel like such an idiot having to ask that,
No,
but
no, Mike, all the way.
okay. Um, Thank you very much. I hope we can talk to you again.
Absolutely.
All
I enjoyed
right.
it.
Thank you very much. This has been the first episode of Lost with Friends. Rewatching the series leading up to most people that would listen to this, I would assume, going back to Hawaii in 2017. Thank you all for listening, and thanks again to Michael Gillman. Make sure to check him out. Michael Gillman Photography. I would assume just Google search that if they're not 100%, right?
Yes,
Comes up.
that's
Okay.
it.
He's amazing. Check out his stuff. I love it. I repost it a lot on my Facebook page. Uh Thanks everybody. Have a great day. Hey everybody, it's Paul, your host for most of the shows on the goes. Okay, that was terrible. But hopefully that episode you just listened to wasn't. So if you enjoyed it, how about you click that little like button, maybe give us a subscribe, and share it to your friends. Thanks.